A Frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast Captain Slug. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new episodes, to seek out new jokes and new references, to split infinitives that no one has split before. Captain Slug, Stardate 61. These are the continued voyages of this podcast as we watch all of Star Trek. I'm Eddie. Mark's here as well. How you been, Mark?
Worried, Eddie, to be honest with you. I've started to... Look, it's no secret. I'm an opinionated man. Right? I have opinions. And I like to let those opinions be known with like-minded people. What's bothering me at the moment is some of my... I don't know if I would necessarily call them strongly held opinions. Like, I'll happily... Like, these are not opinions like, you know, everyone deserves the freedom to kind of be whoever they want to be, and university should be free, and like, the only thing we should be putting on Charles's head this year is an axe, a bit further down. Like those are kind of like, those are inscrutable opinions, right? But I have opinions where I'm more than willing to hear people's sides, even though I do hold them quite strongly and quite passionately and maybe even aggressively. And what's really worrying is that these opinions do tend to... When I have these opinions and then seek out other like-minded people online, it does tend to be absolute fucking gammons. Now not on things like all the races aren't equal or anything. Obviously, I'm pretty against them on that, right? Or that Northern Ireland shouldn't be part of the country that it's in. But things like TV licenses. I think
that's the tier list. That's the tier list of British things. It's like what you, if you want to know somebody well, you ask them what are your opinions on racism, the monarchy, and then the next one down is TV licensing. And from that, you get a pretty good judge of somebody's entire character and worldview.
Because I could go on at this at great length, right? I think the TV infrastructure, the excuse is you pay the TV license because that gives you the BBC, which we all share, and it's all fucking not partisan. What's the, like, kind of down the middle? Like, because the left and the right hate the BBC equally, so they're clearly doing something correct, right? But the argument is, you get the BBC, and I'm like, well, I don't really use the BBC, and I don't really care for the BBC. I wouldn't really care if it went advertisement, like Channel 4's advertisement funded, and it's public owned. Like, that's fine, that wouldn't bother me. But then they hit you with, yeah, but the TV license keeps the infrastructure for television going, so that it can broadcast the signals out. And I'm like, fine, like, but most people have Sky or have Virgin, and we're paying extra. So, like, I just think it's something that should be scrapped. And not only that, like, just I'll be honest, right? We pay our TV license. I say we pay. Laura pays our TV license, because she gets sick of the letters. But it's not really a crime to not pay it. Like, all they can do is come around your house and ask if you have one, and then you tell them, yeah. What are they going to do? They're just salesmen. But sorry, this is going to be quite a long rant before you get given a chance to talk. So I don't give a fuck about that, right? Like, I don't really care. Like, I'm like, well, the world has moved on. We don't really need these things anymore. But I find out that the people who share these opinions are guys that you meet down the pub, and I don't really want to be that guy. And then today, Eddie, what really set me off was I went to go and pick Laura up from work because I had nothing on. And it was rush hour, right? It was like 5 o'clock, and I was just about to pull out of my sort of house complex sort of flat situation. and there was a full funeral procession, like hearse, and like 2 other cars, and I just went, no, fuck this. That's they got down. Luckily, there's a junction very close to where I put out, and luckily they went the other way. But no, like, fine, right? I'll play your fucking game at 10:30 in the morning, right? Where we'll slow down and we'll pretend that's fucking respectful or whatever, right? And I won't overtake, or I'll turn down my music, or I'll take my hat off, whatever, right? I'll do that. I don't care, right? Really, more anyway. But sorry, I haven't had a long time to form this opinion, but don't. But at fucking rush hour, when I have places to be, you are, and that is the worst. They're going slow because it's like an old horse-drawn carriage. Yes, but guess what? Walking was too slow, so they put the coffin in a fucking horse-drawn cart. We now have cars which are faster than horses. Why is a hearse not going 30 miles an hour, right? So, I thought to myself, one, in my will, I'm going to stipulate that the hearse has to maintain the speed limit, right? And 2, when I was waiting for Laura to come out of work, I went on the Google and I asked, what are the actual rules concerning hearses? Because, and this is where it gets really bad, is, you know how when Extinction Rebellion or whoever, or Just Stop Oil, were gluing themselves to the road, and people are like, yeah, but what if an ambulance has to get by? That's how I feel about funeral.
What if an ambulance needs to get by?
Yeah. And it's a single lane road, and look, the roads are for the living, right? So I looked up these things and I was like, what are the actual rules concerning hearses on British roads? Can you overtake on a dual carriageway? And all of the fucking chat was just guys who I'm like, oh, you definitely don't pay your TV license, and you definitely let people hear about it. And also, every single one of them to a man said, I have stipulated in my will that the hearse has to maintain the speed limit. I was like, who am I becoming? I used to be a young radical, Eddie.
I'm getting a visual image. I'm imagining that these people were all wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses inside their own car in their profile picture. Look, the official uniform of shitty opinions.
I get it, right? Death is sad. I'm sorry that your granny died or whatever, right? But mourning isn't Wi-Fi. It doesn't fucking affect everything that it touches. like at the end of the day, I have to be somewhere, and your grand's corpse is preventing me from doing that. So I'm therefore not only not going to feel sad about it, I'm going to feel angry.
I don't like the concept of drive-by respect. I don't like the idea that you bring a fucking coffin past me, and I'm supposed to slow down, take my hat off, and be like, "Oh, isn't it sad?" As far as I know, that's a dead nonce, right? Okay, I don't know. There's one person in the world who's got some money. They've paid for that funeral, and I'm getting there. Oh, isn't it sad? And then I'm going to meet somebody who actually knew him. Who'll be like, "No, it's not sad. Very glad he's dead. He was a fucking monster." Like. You can't drag me into it. But also, to go back to your point about the TV license, my view on the TV license was the same as my view on the monarchy, which is, as long as Attenborough's alive, it's fine. But once Attenborough's dead, we need to have a conversation about it as a nation. The same way we should have done about Prince Charles, who, incidentally, can fuck off. I did an entire set about like abolition of the monarchy the other day, and died on my arse. People have got no taste for beheadings anymore, Mark, and I'm just going to say what I said on the night. Beheading gets a bad rap, but if it wasn't for beheading, we wouldn't have the Louvre, right? So it's not all bad. Don't let ISIS ruin a perfectly good part of society.
This week for my pub quiz on Sunday, that I know for a fact a bunch of monarchists go to, I'm going to write a round all about the king, and it'll just be about people who were the king of other things, like the king of pop, Michael Jackson, or the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, who, incidentally, were also found not guilty by a court of law of being nonces, just as I'm sure that Charles, by the court of public opinion, was also found of not being a nonce, even though, do you know what, I'll put it on the line. I reckon that guy's fucked kids. I don't. I wonder. I wonder. Like, I honestly think it's a coin flip as to whether that guy has fucked more kids or murdered more kids.
Oh, he's a. It's the thing is, you're okay with fucking kids if you're the king of something, king of rock and roll, king of pop, king of silent movies. Charlie Chaplin, all got to fuck kids. Prince Andrew will never be king, and therefore it's dodgy. So.
I highly one of the ways that I actually don't share an opinion with the gammon is that I think it's a terrible idea to introduce the death penalty for paedophiles. Because if you're already enough of an asshole to rape a child, then you're likely just going to think, well, if the kid lives, he'll just testify, so I'll just kill him, right? But I absolutely would be in favour of bringing back the death penalty for all of the crimes that Charles has done, no matter how slight.
Yeah,
I think he should. I think that should be the rule. I think if you're in the royal family, you should get 1 week of being king, and then the people get to murder and eat you.
Do you know that the big concert they're having? Take That are playing, which is funny because Take That is what Charles's ancestors used to say while pointing at a map of Africa.
But have you watched Up That?
I'm never going to get a chance to bring that joke up ever again. It's literally only good for a week, and I've got no gigs, so I thought, fuck it, I'd bring it out.
And you know what? The people who are like, "Oh, you're just jealous." Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I was a royal. I wish I had the impunity to murder all the kids I like. There's a fucking secondary school across the road from where I live. If you don't think that I have at least at one point in my darkest hour wished that I could kill children with impunity, then you're wrong.
But I think this is getting a bit dark, Mark. So let's move it on to this episode of Star Trek in which a woman lies about being raped. I can't change the plot of the episode. That's what happens. Although she doesn't lie, according to the Anna Troy, she thinks she's telling the truth. She just perceived Riker as being a rapist, and Riker doesn't think he's a rapist because he doesn't understand inherent power dynamics. This episode's fucking weird.
Yeah.
I thought we'd got out of problematic territory. Now we're in season 3, but this might be one of the worst. Well, no, the racist episode was still the worst.
Because it's really up and down, isn't it? Because we've got like a super pro-trans episode coming up pretty soon, I think.
Do we?
I can't remember. It's an episode I've never seen, but a lot of people have talked about it. In the gammon forums that I'm on, but I'm on about the speed of hearses. People often bring this up. No, I've never seen it, but I thought it was in season 3. But it's like super like surprisingly openly pro-trans for a TV show that was out in the early 90s, especially for a TV show of this success.
Okay, I'm looking. Yeah.
Anyway, so Riker. First of all, let's settle this. Do you think he did it?
Look, all I'm going to say is, given my impression of Riker thus far, no, I don't think he is a murderer or a rapist. But equally speaking, that's what rapists want you to think. So they don't wear badges. It'd be, counterproductive to their agenda. So yeah, I don't know. It's complex. But the weirdest thing about it is the fact that it has him being accused of rape, Mark, has no narrative function within the structure of the episode.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
He could. So the thing is, Riker beams back from a space station, and then it explodes at the same time that he beams over, and the people from the planet they're on are like, "Oh, we think you're guilty of murder." They run a simulation of everyone's testimony in the holodeck, so you see it from everyone's different sides of the story. And his one is, this bloke's wife threw himself at me. I didn't want to have anything to do with her, and then I left. And then his wife's version is, he tried to rape me. Whereas it could have just been as easily been, he tried to hit on me, but in a consensual manner.
I think I don't know if I don't agree that it doesn't add to the narrative. At the risk of sounding insensitive, the only thing for me that it really does add to for the first time in this podcast, the only thing that it really does add to the narrative is that it makes the episode 45 minutes long rather than half an hour. But the thing is, otherwise, if that wasn't the case, if it wasn't in there, they'd have to change the title of the episode, and that seems like a lot of work. So, this episode is this, but if you don't know, this episode is called Riker gets accused of rape.
As you said that, all I've got in my head is the opening titles from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I'll try and let's see if I can, because it's been about a week and a half since I watched this one, so let's see if I can recall it from memory, right? So there's a guy, and he's a scientist, and he is creating a new form of energy or something. Yeah, Krieger waves.
Krieger waves. They get you in your sleep, and Riker goes down because Starfleet are interested in getting these. So Riker and Geordi go down. Geordi goes off and sits in a cupboard somewhere, and then Riker beams back aboard. But as he's beaming on, the station explodes, and don't worry, Chief O'Brien's sober enough to get him back. So he beams him in, and then everyone's really surprised, like, "Oh my god, you made it out!" He discovers that obviously the spaceships, the starship has, or the space station has blown up. Then he is accused by a lawyer from that race of having blown up the ship immediately before he left it.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting plot in its own.
Right. I have questions about that, though.
Right.
Because Riker, if Riker, the last thing Riker did is shoot his phaser at this thing. Then when he beams in, surely he'd have his phaser out, and that would be on the Enterprise's equivalent of CCTV, right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He just beams in standing there. So surely that's enough evidence that he didn't do that.
I think, yeah.
And also, there's another bit. So that the guy has built this as an energy source, and it turns out at the end that he's trying to weaponize it. You know, like all good Star Trek villains. But because they've made a replica of it in the holodeck, his device, it's basically like a reflector that reflects. So there's a generator on the planet that beams things up, and then this little reflector turns them into radiation. And because they've made one in the holodeck, it keeps blasting jolts of radiation all over the ship.
So to clarify, the reason that they built it in the holodeck, is that
Picard,
because it's a courtroom, right? They turn it into a courtroom, and this is the testimony.
Yeah.
And they recreate it exactly.
Picard didn't want to extradite Riker to the planet because this is one of the cheaper episodes.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to build a new set.
And at one point, Riker says, the holodeck can't create anything dangerous. And then I assume that Picard reminded him that he was under oath.
Yeah, it had to be, because Jesus Christ, why would you do this?
One time the holodeck made a supervillain.
Yeah,
because Geordi used the wrong tense.
yeah, it did. One time, and what they've done now is, look, we want to create a holodeck program where we know for certain one of the people that's in this program is a murderer.
Yeah.
So go for it, fill your boots. But also, like, things look like they do in the holodeck. I get that. Like, but they aren't the actual things. So if your plan is that you've built like a thing that harnesses the energy from like down below, unless you've replicated that in the middle of the holodeck, it wouldn't work the same. I don't think.
Yeah.
Unless it can. The holodeck is basically, we've got this little box that's got God in it. Don't question it. Don't leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't look at it. Don't try to apply any science to it.
Use it to create various bars.
Yeah.
You literally cannot go wrong. It's the only thing I have ever seen the holodeck not go wrong on, is turning it into a bar. Even in First Contact, when Picard turns it into a bar, essentially a big sort of jazz bar, the holodeck literally saves him by providing him with a gun with bullets in it, the Borg's one true weakness.
I love the fact that its ability to create bars is the reason that fucking Starfleet have it on a separate fucking like power source, and also because it means if you haven't got a lot of money to spend that episode, you can just film in a nearby bar, which saves you a lot of money. Like basically, what I'm driving at here is they saved a lot of money on Picard season 3 because that was they'd already used the Titan sets and they already had the 10 forward set, and that's most of it that they do it in. So well done.
I did wonder how long we were going to talk about this boring ass episode before we just decided to abandon it and discuss
talk about
Picard season 3. Although, if you listen to us, you almost certainly watch Red Letter Media, and if you want to know our opinions on if you want to know my opinions on Picard, just watch the 3 videos of them talking about this season of Picard, because those are basically my opinions, except they are funnier than I am.
Yeah. I was going to say I like the fact that this is so Picard painting at the beginning of this episode, and he's bad at it, and Data tells him that he's bad at it.
Yeah.
Because he can't lie.
Yeah.
Because I saw him painting and I was like, oh, that's a bit. Are we going to be expected to say this is some sort of futuristic, abstract, avant-garde art? And I figure I like that in the same way that I like the fact that Picard can't make wine.
Yeah. My favourite line in all of Picard season 3, including the ones that literally brought me to tears, was when there was a situation that, if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil anything. But there's a situation where they have to do the old "tell me a thing that only you would know" type deal, and Geordi holds a phaser up to Picard, and Picard holds a phaser up to Geordi, and Geordi says, prove that you're Picard. Picard says, I brought a bottle of Chateau Picard Merlot over for Christmas one year, which you called too dry because your taste in wine is completely pedestrian. I had to pause it to laugh.
Yeah. To be fair, that it's Picard season 3 has some of the funniest moments in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
And only some of those moments are Terry Matalis directly pissing in Alex Kurtzman's face.
No one's seen or heard from the Borg in 10 years. Haven't they?
Technically, that makes sense. They were in an alternate timeline in Picard season 2. So it's good though, isn't it?
And the best thing is, like, cause, it's real good. It is really funny, but no one gets a laugh that hasn't been earned over 30 years of work.
Yeah,
it's not like they just drop in like some wisecracking character. Maybe apart from Shaw, but Shaw never. But Shaw's awesome.
Sure is amazing.
And the stuff that he says, it's not like, I guess it is wisecracks, but I guess it's funny because of, yeah.
Shaw is the kind of Starfleet captain who you wouldn't even see in a normal Star Trek. It's just another ship turns up, and it's he's captain of a starship Not a major one, not a big one. He doesn't get to go and do silly adventurous stuff. He's the guy who's probably sent in the week after the Enterprise has been somewhere to clean up, and has dealt with so much bullshit from the Picards and Kirks of the universe.
What an absolute dice roll by Terry Matalas to be like, not only am I going to bring back Next Gen crew, the ships, the feeling to some degree of a Next Gen episode when it comes to the character interactions, I'm going to introduce a character that everyone is arguably going to like more than these people that they want to see. Everything about Shaw, like I really want him to show up in an episode of Lower Decks, and apparently this might be on the cards. But my favourite Shaw moment. No, you can't narrow them down. Basically, every Shaw moment isn't my favourite moment, but it's the bit where he kind of clears something up. That's almost like you didn't have to. It almost kind of felt a bit like what's your name, Han? What's your surname? Oh, I don't have one. Well, you're here yourself, so it's Solo. But it was when he's going off on one and he says, Locutus. The only Borg so dangerous they gave him a goddamn name. I really like that part.
Yeah. It's. I'm gonna try my best to not spoil anything. There might be some light. Watch Picard season 3. If you enjoyed Star Trek: The Next Generation, Picard season 3 is a fucking love letter. It's everything done right, and now I never want to see those characters ever again.
No, never.
Except for maybe Geordi. Yeah. Geordi is okay to turn up very fucking rarely. Like, I want to see him maybe once.
Yeah.
That's it.
No Riker, no Picard. Fucking Troy gets something to do, and what she does is essentially destroy a generation's worth of internet memes in one go, and I want to never ever hear from her ever again. I don't think that Counselor Troy needs to prove herself. I kind of love that. I love that character. I will always come to Troy's defense, but Troy proves herself even though she kind of didn't really have to, and it's incredible. We should get back to the shit episode.
I was going to say, one thing we've learned during this series, it's like during this show, is that the hate for Deanna Troi is completely fucking... It's based on a fucking nerd culture that is, at best, mildly misogynistic.
Yeah.
Right, that's at best. And a lot of, like, over, like, oh, she didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. Because she didn't do anything that you perceive as having value. But she's fucking done something incredibly important. You just don't perceive it as having value because you're a fucking emotional fucking child, right? Just to touch on it again, briefly. But the fact that when she turns up, because she's not like the legacy characters in Star Trek Picard sort of come in one by one, and by the time Troy comes up, the minute she walked in, I was like, oh yeah, thank God Troy's here. She can deal with that thing that's a problem.
Yeah.
And like the minute it happened, I was like, okay, yeah, Troy's here. Let's get it sorted. And then it did. It's just so good. It's so good.
Watching the 10th episode, I was alone because Laura was in London, and I'm glad because I was a mess. And I twice literally jumped off the couch in celebration. Magical. Just that magical.
Watched the entire season over one weekend, and I have no qualms in admitting I fucking ugly cried at moments in episodes 9 and episodes 10.
Yeah.
They are, yeah, it's great. It's great. If you watch it, you're going to watch the first 4 episodes and go, this is some of the best Star Trek I've ever seen. Then you're going to watch the next 4 episodes and you might go, oh, this is this might
This is
be
very middle.
Oh, this has got a problem. Oh, I hope they're not going to do, and everything you're going to hope that they're not going to do, that's not what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're doing something else, and it makes actual complete logical sense and isn't as stupid as you worried it might be.
Yeah. Speaking of as stupid as I worried it might be, this fucking episode. Right, so
Yeah.
So this alien judge, kind of lawyer type guy, he comes on. He says we have to extradite Riker because he's being accused of murder, and on our planet, it's slander. It's slander rules. You have to prove your innocence more than they have to prove your guilt.
Yeah, I've actually put down guilty until proven innocent. The Daily Mail system.
I've got down here. I didn't look up any background on this episode because I don't think it deserved it.
No.
But one of my notes is, the shot of Riker walking behind Hollow Riker while the camera moves is legitimately impressive. There's a part where Riker walks behind himself and the camera follows him, and doing that on a 90s budget is remarkable. Like, a couple of episodes ago, we talked about how them trying to get fancy with some compositing meant that Picard literally couldn't react to watching his first officer murder a woman in front of him.
Yeah.
But this was next level.
The funniest thing about it is, like, so there's a lot of, like, the hologram happening in the room and then moving around it, and that's, like, legitimately impressive. But then there's a scene where Riker punches a man twice, and it's Riker shot from behind, and it's clearly Riker's stunt double because he's got, like, a paunch. He's like a much heavier man than Jonathan Frakes. And I was like, look, I get you don't want to do your own stunts. I know that Jonathan Frakes has back trouble as well, so he might not be as agile as you'd like him to be. But he can pretend to punch a man.
Yeah.
What's he going to do if he ever needs to actually punch a man? Like, that's not Riker, that's like Jonathan Frakes. Like, I'm assuming at some point there's been a Star Trek nerd who needs to smack.
I imagine Frakes is a man to only act in self-defense. And if you're the type of person that could get angry enough that you punch Jonathan Frakes, I don't want to know you. There's a lot of celebrities I would happily punch.
Jonathan Frakes is not even on the list.
No.
Nobody who's in the cast of Star Trek Next Generation. Let me rephrase that. Nobody except Wesley who's in the cast of Star Trek Next Generation is somebody I would definitely punch. Will Wheaton's actually a lovely guy. I wouldn't punch him, but I could also envision a situation in which Will Wheaton got onto me.
Laura and I have been watching Criminal Minds recently, and there's an episode that we watched recently, and the way that Criminal Minds works is it's kind of like a not Scooby-Doo, in that they show you who the guy is about halfway through, and then it's about them figuring out how to get to him. It's a bit like Columbo in that respect. But halfway through this episode, where it's a dude who runs a shady hotel, and when couples stop in there for the night, he gives them a key, and then he sort of freaks them out a little bit, and then he basically locks them in the room, and it's like the walls are like concrete reinforced, and you can't get out the windows, and he can kind of get around. And then halfway through, it's revealed to be Will Wheaton. And when we were watching it, and he popped on, I literally done the Leonardo DiCaprio meme and shouted, "Wesley Crusher!" And Laura was like, "Oh yeah!" And she was like, I wonder what the crossover is. Like, what's the crossover of fans of Criminal Minds and Star Trek: The Next Generation who would get excited about that? It's probably pretty huge. Next Gen was a very, I mean, like, let's get stereotypical here, but procedurals are sort of mainly watched by women.
Yeah.
Largely. But so was Star Trek: The Next Generation. I mean, huge numbers. Can't all be nerdy guys.
I kind of wonder about it because Will Wheaton has been in a lot of stuff, and I always wonder to an extent, like, what, because he's a good actor, like, now, and he's in Stand By Me. He's like he's got some decent acting chops on him. But I do kind of wonder if there isn't, like, when he turns up in like Leverage or something like that, whether if there was a moment where they were like, oh, should we cast? We've got 2 actors in the running for this gig, and one of them was in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which one do we get? We get ask him if he can bring along any props.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, because definitely like the cinematographer or at least the sound recorder want to see like a tricorder. Because well, we definitely stole some shit from that set, man. Like everyone would have.
I imagine everybody's got a com. Well, I say everybody's got a com badge. I know for a fact that Denise Crosby doesn't, but that's story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have nicked so much stuff, like, because you've got to keep the uniforms as well. But like on the last day of like filming, I'd have like cleaned off the furniture out 10 forward. Like you'll never use, because like certain props get reused a lot in Hollywood. Like a lot of people don't realise this, but like for example, if the guns in Starship Troopers, flip those upside down so your pinky's resting on the trigger, right? And you've got the guns that the Union or whatever they're called, the Alliance, use in Firefly.
Also the uniforms. And the helmets, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff gets reused, like the EKG meter from Ghostbusters turns up fucking everywhere.
Yeah, the PK, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, stuff gets reused, but you're never gonna, like, the stuff in, like, 10 forward is too iconic. Like,
that fucking little pyramid thing in the middle of the table that no one's ever explained. I'd have 3 of them. And then, so that whenever anyone came around my house going, what's that for? I'd be like...
I think it might be a room deodorizer, right?
That's
what nobody ever brings up, is a lot of aliens stink.
Yeah. Hold on.
Did you notice who the scientist in this was?
No.
He was Mark Margolis, who is the guy with the little bell in Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, he's also been in loads of other stuff.
Yeah.
He's a quintessential that guy actor, but he's like the one. That's the thing I noticed him from.
Hector Salamanca was his name.
Right. Yeah. But one thing I want to bring up is we see. So the gimmick with the episode is we see the same scenes, like 2 or maybe 3 scenes, but we see them done like different ways. They happen depending on who's told the story. So Riker's version is he's in this room, this bloke's wife is throwing himself at him, he says no thanks, the bloke comes in, Dr. Apgar comes in, as a little, like, punches his wife in the face in Riker's version as well. I've got to throw that out there.
Yep, back time, yeah.
And Riker does nothing about that.
What's the press? Riker's prime directive.
So, Apgar then goes to punch Riker.
If Riker was a wrestler, do you think he would use the catchphrase, according to the prime Riker? Directive.
The Riker directive? I don't know.
We'll work on it. There's a writer's strike that started today, so...
technically we can't workshop it.
Is that going to... Sorry, James, we're moving away from an episode again, but is that even going to affect WWE? Like, does Vince hire union writers?
So...
You'd hope they'd walk out of solidarity, but...
I don't know what the situation is at WWE. I know that the AEW, they just get bullet points from like older wrestlers. It will like say this, and this. Mention when the pay-per-view is. Fill your boots, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But oh man, if you're younger and you listen to this, the writer's strike, man, you're not gonna believe. Like, there is a genuine, I think, a 5-minute spot from an old episode of Conan's show where he spins his wedding ring on its side and they try and bet on how long it will spin for, And that's what passed for entertainment during the last writer's strike. And we don't have Conan anymore on TV, so we're fucked.
Yeah, because a lot of the online discourse at the moment, because I wasn't really watching late night TV at the time. I barely watch it now. I love Conan. I watch a lot of Conan stuff on YouTube. But what happened the last time is that the late night hosts, as they have announced that they're doing today, in solidarity, have shut down production. Which hilariously means that James Corden is not going to get a farewell show. But
that's why they struck.
Yeah, exactly. But they shut down. The last time they shut down for 2 weeks, and then contractually they had to come back. Now, as well as contractually, what you have to remember is that the writers are only one part of the crew, and those crews are not on strike, so they can't not work. So it's unfair. So it is a bit of a rock and a hard place situation, but I understand any live TV show that's like, no, we have to go because we can't, the cameramen aren't, or the IASTE or whatever, they are not striking. Yeah, so Conan has come up a bit in discourse as well, because people are like, it's arguably the best Conan, because yes, Conan is amazing, and Conan has great writers, and Conan works very well with his writers and stuff. But when Conan is just left to his own devices, like at one point he spends half an episode trying to change a light bulb. Like, Conan, although he's not writing, Conan wrote arguably like a top 3 of all time episode of The Simpsons. He is an amazing writer. And he's a funny guy, and like, yeah. Apparently, even Jay Leno got funnier.
Yeah, I saw an interview ages ago with Conan O'Brien where he was talking about he was like, I've been a late night host for 25 years, and when I get introduced like to speak at events, that people mention like my 25 years as in late night on the same level as the fact that I wrote the monorail episode of The Simpsons. like that is considered such an achievement, and it's like, yeah, no, Conan can't like write a script, but he's still got the brain that came up with the fucking monorail episode. Yeah. And I'm actually really gutted that we aren't gonna get to see James Corden trying a riff, because like Seth Meyers, I reckon, can do it. Colbert and Seth Meyers, like, what brought you to the party was being funny and spontaneous guy. Yeah. But James Corden has fucking
nothing.
First of all, it was Ruth who wrote everything funny in fucking Gavin and Stacey. Yeah. And that's based on absolutely nothing, but I am completely certain of it. And yeah, and James Corden's crew don't particularly like him, so they will happily hang him out to dry on his arse. Just such a shame, that's why he quit. He knew this was coming because he was busy voting against the striking workers.
Right, so holodeck. So we see the same scene from like different perspectives, and sorry, you have a point. I can see that because you're jesting on it.
Okay, right. Riker dodges the blow in his one, and he punches away. In the version of events told by the bloke's wife, Riker beats the crap out of her husband, Dr. Apgar. But then finally we get Dr. Apgar's assistant telling the version of events that Dr. Apgar told her. And that is where, I'm going to put this out, like, Mark Margolis is an old man now, but he was quite old when this episode was filmed. And he's also, like, quite small, spry. He's a spry man, but he's a small man. And his version of events is he kicked the shit out of William Riker, right? So at that point, we could immediately, if I was in the court, I would have been, if I was John Luke, just gone, point of order. No way you beat the shit out of Will.
No.
He's not an old man with a slug in his brain.
No. He's not a Worf. You can't just beat the shit out of him in order to prove that you are physically the strongest. No, Will Riker will kill you. No, he didn't. No, sorry, can we start again? Can we have a recess?
That should have been the defence. Your Honour, if William Riker was going to kill anyone, he'd beat them to death with a rock. Or another blunt instrument that was lying around. Oh. But yeah, we got some good O'Brien. O'Brien saved Riker's life, so he's up for promotion.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, definitely. Troy says, I don't think you're a rapist, but there's two sides to every coin, so I'm not really backing her right now.
I don't know, man. Because it's not a very good episode, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's extremely middling. It's better than a lot of like season 1, but it's not great.
No, yeah,
but it does kind of raise if Star Trek's mission obviously is to boldly go where no one has gone before, but if Star Trek's mission is to examine the human condition, then the idea of there being different perspectives on a single event is a massive part of the human experience. Everyone ironically experiences it, even though you only have your own perspective. And the idea of, I think they kind of gloss over. I think if the episode had been maybe a little bit more about how the mechanics work, like because he just says to Geordi, because Geordi was there, he was sort of present before this happened. So Geordi has to go and upload his testimony into the holodeck. And I think maybe if it had been something like, you've seen Severance, right?
Yeah.
Right, so imagine something like, so we'll bring in an arbiter. Like, we'll bring in a Federation arbiter or a non-Federation arbiter, and they'd go off to the holodeck, and they'd sit down at, like, an interview table with Riker, with the assistant, with the wife, with Geordi, and it would be a thing of, like, okay, what did you experience? Geordi gives his, just like straight up gives his testimony. We maybe see it in flashbacks. And then Riker gives his testimony, and then the wife, and then the assistant, and they all give their testimony, and we kind of all see it in flashbacks. But then, through some basically editing, we would reveal, they're not really flashbacks. They are being writ large on the holodeck in front of them, and everyone is there to see it. And it's then just cut. I mean, this is maybe a bit conceptual, but then they cut back to the kind of court of, like, the literal court of law, who are like, okay, we've heard and we have seen everyone's testimony. Like, we know that this was your perception of what happened. We will now deliberate. And then they go, well, we don't think Riker did it. Obviously, the reason that they know that Riker didn't do it is a science fiction reason. The science fiction reason. Is the reason that the thing that the guy made, that they have now replicated on the holodeck, exploded that fucking starbase, and now is threatening to explode the Enterprise. And that's how they're like, oh, Riker didn't do it. But I think there's a structure to this episode that would have worked better, and we could have included all those elements, like the wife accusing him of sexual impropriety and stuff like that. That all would have made sense. But I think just the ideas in this episode are interesting, but the execution just isn't.
The problem for me is it doesn't need, like, when you're writing a Star Trek episode, you should be thinking, is there something? Firstly, you should be thinking, is this an interesting story that we can tell? Absolutely. But then probably the second question should be, is it a story that only Star Trek can tell?
Yeah.
And this, in different narrators having their own perspective on what happened in the past, every long-running TV show has had a version of this episode, basically. I'm certain that there's one involving vampires in an X-Files episode where it's like Mulder and Scully are being debriefed separately, and they both you have flashbacks to both of their versions of the story. So it's not that groundbreaking an idea. Sure. Yeah, and it's like, so it's not that groundbreaking an idea. You don't, and normally this would be, like I say, middling episode. It's got the season 3 quality level that we expect. So there's nothing particularly wrong. But right in the middle, there's just this tiny little aside which just goes, oh, also, sometimes when women say they've been sexually assaulted, they're just making that shit up. Anyway, on with the episode.
Yeah.
It's like that's...
It's like well, that's just what she perceived. Which is kind of like who wrote this? And can we have a look at their Wikipedia? Because I don't know, man. Why are you putting that in? That'd be like that'd be like a character in Buffy just randomly saying to each other that yes, these demons have smaller brains like black people, but then just like just letting it go. Like, what?
Yeah. Just like So what we suspect is that these demons are actually part of a shadowy cabal. Goes what? Them and the Jews, right? It's really it's a really weird, and it doesn't. And like I say, it's not. Okay, this is gonna. Oh man, I'm gonna get myself in so much trouble. Right,
I've never been on the other side of this.
Right, I'm. Okay, women. Sometimes, very rarely, can lie about this sort of thing. That is one of the things that can happen in the universe. That's all I'm going to say. I don't think it happens commonly or frequently enough that we should be majorly concerned about it. And I think that you should, in general, take women at their word about what happened. There is an interesting episode you could do with a story of somebody doing this if you then addressed if that's what the episode was about, and you then had the social implications of how other women talking about how doing this sort of thing affects other people's ability to be believed, and then tie that into what you can't really do in Star Trek, but you could maybe do is like have other female characters talk about very real examples of situations in their own life that this sort of stuff had happened, to underline the fact that like maybe this is, but it happens so frequently that you've got no reason to disbelieve a woman when she tells you this story. Like, if you wanted to tell that story, you'd have to be very careful. But I think there is an interesting story to tell about that.
And like the tightrope walk, like because we fucking this is a pejorative term, but we fucking white knight on this show quite a lot. Like, but the idea that there's enough women out there lying about it, like, it's difficult enough for women to come forward with these things when they're telling the truth. It's the idea of them not only have to fucking lie about it and already have people assuming that they're lying, and then also the effort of fucking keeping that up to a point, like, that's rare. It's so rare. It might as well not be a factor until we find out that it definitely is. But that is a story to tell. That is inarguably a factor of the human existence. I don't know if you know this, women are people, and people are duplicitous. There are at some point going to be women who are duplicitous about that thing. So the story of how does that affect people is a story worth telling, because it's something that we can be interested in and talk about, etc. But the problem is, you would have to bring on that story, as far as I'm concerned, is women's to tell.
Yeah.
So the problem is, it was the 90s on network television.
Yeah.
It was the same year, in fact, I believe, that Ridley Scott received the script for Thelma and Louise, thought it was the most empowering feminist movie he's ever seen, looked for a female director who would be able to tell that story effectively, and then remembered that he's the most feminist director in the world. So he made it.
I think it is very telling about this particular episode that Bev is on screen for maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I get the impression that they it's like somebody on this episode was like, There's not a lot for Bev to do, and then like maybe a woman in the writers' room was like, "Let's not give her more to do, because we don't want to explain why Beverly Crusher isn't our Doctor again in season 4."
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, given that dodginess, that one little, because it is literally only like maybe 2-3 minutes that this is addressed, but given that the fact it's a fairly mere episode, I genuinely say you just don't bother watching it. It's like you're not gonna be. It's not like they drop that bit into the middle of Measure of a Man, where you'd be like, look, I know that bit is really problematic, and that we have to address that, but it's the best episode of Star Trek ever written, right? You know,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's a problematic bit in an episode that's not that good, so you can kind of just leave it.
Yeah. I agree. Don't worry about it on a rewatch. Just skip seasons 1 and 2, apart from Measure of a Man, and skip this.
Yeah. Because I'd forgotten that this was in this. I've seen this episode before, and I'd forgotten. And then it got about 10 minutes. I got about 10 minutes into the episode, and I was like, "This is the one where Riker gets accused of rape." And then it happens for like a minute, and I was like, "I remember that being a bigger deal."
Yeah. I'm gonna watch Dungeons and Dragons later.
Oh, it's good.
Because so it's not done super well at the box office. I think it barely has made its budget back, not even its marketing.
Oh.
But apparently, insiders have said that I don't know if it's Universal, whoever is distributing it, whoever the producers, kind of had that like in mind anyway, because they want this to be a series and they know that it's going to take up steam on like VOD and stuff. So rather than just so I decided what I was going to do is they're taking the VOD numbers into consideration. So I bought it digitally, and then I discovered that it only comes out digitally in America today. So I how I'm going to watch it is a mystery for only the ages to answer. But if you are the rights owners of Dungeons and Dragons, you literally have my money already.
Yeah.
I just might watch it on Plex rather than on Amazon.
Yeah, it's good. It's
Can't wait.
good.
I'm
I
really
was thinking
excited.
about this the other day. It's what, as a society, why did we decide that Michelle Rodriguez was always going to be a helicopter pilot? Because she's got range. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, yeah, watch the D&D movie. It's real good.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Nice one.
All right.
All right. Bye.